Okay, if all works perfectly, then this video goes up on my birthday. And what better show to talk about on my birthday than this absolute beauty of a show? After winning the Olivier Award for Best New Musical in 2023, there was a little bit of a gap before we got to see Standing at the Sky's Edge again. As someone who missed it when it was at the National, I have been waiting with bated breath for this production. The sheer amount of praise I have heard given to this show has just made me more and more excited for it. But did that put it on too high of a pedestal? What did I think of Standing at the Sky's Edge? I quite liked it. I quite liked it. I enjoyed it. You don't need to worry. Way to undermine that suspense there. But what are my full thoughts on Standing at the Sky's Edge? What did I like? What could have been a little bit tighter? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I'm the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do video essays, and if any of that's interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive in to Standing at the Sky's Edge. I think the element of the show that I have unbridled praise for is this story, this book, this script is just so full of interesting characters, beats, motifs, and everything. The way that it loops through its story is genius. I think it is undeniable that the actual book of this show is its strongest element, and a testament to what a fantastic writer Chris Bush is. Oh my god, if it doesn't exist already, I am starting the Chris Bush fan club, and y'all better get a membership right now, because she deserves it. Standing at the Sky's Edge is set in Sheffield. The whole show is this love letter to the community in Sheffield. It tackles a couple of different stories from 3 alternating time periods that flow neatly alongside each other. In each time period, we see a different story. We have the story of Rose and her husband and their struggles after their honeymoon period, moving into this flat. This flat being the same flat that all 3 stories take place in, Park Hill, the very famous flat in Sheffield. The second time period deals with Joy, coming with some members of her extended family to this estate in Sheffield to escape war in her home country. And the modern day story surrounds Poppy, who's just broken up with her longtime girlfriend, Nikki. I absolutely adore the way that this story flows. It weaves between each time period effortlessly. A lot of these moments taking place at the exact same time, contrasting different elements of their stories. And I love how each one overlaps. There's characters that appear in multiple stories. I'll avoid spoilers to talk about which ones cross over, but the way that it clicks and the moments where it kind of sinks in and you realize, it's really satisfying to watch. Each of these time periods allows Bush, with her writing, to tackle very different issues, some of which still feel very relevant to today. There's a lot of discussions about class, about racism, about attitudes towards people. It tackles gentrification, a word that I have struggled for the past 5 minutes to say, and explores that through the modern day, and contrasting that with the families who were in this flat before. All 3 of these groups feel so different, but their struggles are so unique. Their stories are so worth hearing. These are normal, everyday people struggling with governments and finance and everything that we struggle with day to day. And because we're dealing with different time periods, because we know that all of these people will eventually move out, there's so much really clever foreshadowing in there. There's so many moments where we're kind of given hints as to what happens to certain characters. But even so, when it happens, the ball just drops. I think this book is absolutely gorgeous. It just explores so many different characters, their struggles, their lives, how times change and how they deal with that, or in certain cases, can't deal with that. It's heartbreaking, it's engaging, it is just beautiful. It is a pure beauty to watch. Everything about the script of this book works for me. I felt so engaged to these characters and to their lives, but I can't really say as much to the tune of the music, because this is technically a musical, but it doesn't approach it in a very typical musical theatre style. I would actually more describe Standing at the Sky's Edge as a play with music. When you look at it through that lens, I prefer it. Because I'd argue that it's the music that doesn't really help this show flow along. In a musical, your music is there to help tell the story. When a character is feeling too much emotion and too much, they break out into song. And often that song will lead you on a journey from a starting point to an end. And by the end of a song, you are in a completely different place. Whereas Standing at the Sky's Edge uses its music in a very different and interesting way. It uses the music of Richard Hawley to underscore moments, to explore the emotion of the scene, and to almost hit pause on the show for a moment and lead into a song to kind of express itself. It's less musical theatre style and more of just like an underscoring, which isn't inherently a negative. I think all of this music does work in context, and especially when it's taking the emotions of such heightened scenes and really allowing this stage to just come to life. That's where it feels most impactful. But it doesn't drive the story forwards. And because of that, it's relying on this book that does a fantastic job at it, but it's relying on this book to do that heavy lifting for it. I don't think this is a fatal blow to the show, especially because when you watch it and you're really engaged with it, it does work. But I think because of that, I find it hard to label this show as a musical. This is not to say there aren't some fantastic moments with this score. The opening of Act 2, the way it's staged with all the smoke coming out and all of our characters that we see standing very sternly with very slow tilting movements towards each side as they perform Standing at the Sky's Edge with these harsh lights and just this thick fog. I think a lot more of the upbeat numbers work for me. Something like These Streets Are Ours, when we have this whole estate pretty much come to life, you start to realize how big this cast is, as they're all kind of going about on these loops of their daily lives, matched up really cleverly to provide this beautiful picture. The joy of the mundane, the heartbeat of everyday life. And then, of course, there's the staging of the song at the end of Act 1, which just throws everything to the wall as we see these riots. We have actors in the audience throwing newspaper down from the balcony. Or I guess it's the dress circle. Is it the dress circle? I think it's the dress circle in the Gillian Lynne. Yeah, it's called a dress circle. They're throwing newspaper from the dress circle. Sorry, somebody would moan at me in the comments if I didn't say exactly what it's officially called in that theatre. I think a lot of the staging really does help lift these numbers up a little bit, but I think the point was summed up best by my good friend Mickey Joe Theatre. You obviously know who Mickey Joe Theatre is, but if you don't, go subscribe to Mickey Joe Theatre. When discussing the show with him at the end, he said this one point that I feel like summed it up for me perfectly, so I'm just going to steal it from him. With credit, of course. Which is that the show is so long, that book is so long, because the show has to pause for the music. I don't think it's the thing that kills the show, because I think a lot of these numbers are handled with a lot of care and do add a lot of an emotional beat to this show. I feel like I would definitely miss this music if it wasn't there, but I think a lot of it dwells in the moment instead of pushing it forward. The design of this show, oh my god. Oh my god. Ben Stones' set is this absolutely gorgeous, brutalist tribute to Park Hill. The balcony with the band, the tiers at the top, the way that it stretches upwards and outwards, the expansive nature of it really gives you a sense of the scale of this place. You have the staircases at the side, which feel perfectly reminiscent of Park Hill, going all the way up as well. There's so many interesting little elements to this set, like the steps down into the depths of the stage at the side. And I love the touch of the lighting, these panels up the top that only in a few moments will light themselves up in the colors of the windows at Park Hill. It looks utterly fantastic on the Gillian Lynne stage. And I think I'm just going to say it. I think it's the best set I've seen in the West End in a while. It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful. Ben Stones, you did such a good job, and I will tell you that later. And let's talk about this cast. I love the journey that Rachel Wooding takes us on with Rose. She's a character who starts off the show in this honeymoon phase. She's so enamored by this flat and by her husband, and slowly we see that color and that life drained from her as it's drained from her husband. A truly heartbreaking portrayal, really selling that pain and that longing to once again see that life that you saw in the person you love. Joel Harper-Jackson plays the husband, Harry. And I think I'd say very similar things. I feel like the way that you see him just kind of fall apart is so sad. He becomes so much more washed up. You can really understand through the betrayal, his status, his stance, his mannerisms, how low he has fallen. Samuel Jordan as Jimmy, it instantly comes off as so likable and charming. Through his first conversation with Joy, you instantly get a sense of who this character is. And then when they flip it around and twist on that opening towards the end of Act 1, oh my god, he made me cry. Oh my god, he made me cry so hard. Chris Bush. Chris Bush, why'd you do this to me? And matched with the absolutely perfect delivery from Samuel Jordan. It's perfection. Because equally carrying the weight in that scene is Elizabeth Ayodele, who plays Joy. I think out of all of the character journeys in this show, Joy's is probably my favorite. She starts out when we first see her as a newcomer to the UK. Not wanting to be here, but having to move to escape war without her mother or her father, and not knowing whether they're alive or not. There's a lot that her character carries, and Elizabeth performs this with all of that weight needed. And just what I said with Samuel Jordan, that final scene, oh my god, her delivery of those lines, the pain in her voice, it is heart-shattering. It took my heart. It's right here. And then it took a little bat. And then it just went ham on it. And then it's sad. I absolutely love the dynamic between Laura Pitt Pulford as Poppy and Lauren Redding as Nikki. These two people who are desperately in love with each other, but are so wrong for each other at the same time. They both make mistakes, they both run away, and they're struggling to really get back together and to express that to one another. It's the most modern out of the stories, dealing with a lesbian relationship, but also in the sense of that lack of communication. It's just a relationship that's already fallen apart, and two people struggling to put it back together again. Bolstered up by these absolutely fantastic performances from the hilarious Lauren Redding, who sells all the absurdity of these moments, and the very relatable Poppy played by Pulford. And then there's Mel Lowe, a wonderful narrator of this show who threads the needle between each of these stories perfectly, having such presence on stage and getting some of the most beautiful, almost poetry-like dialogue to perform. And just a quick shout out to this fantastic ensemble of actors as well. This is a big cast, and everyone here is so wonderful to watch. Standing at the Sky's Edge is a beautiful show. Yes, I have a few issues with how it handles its music, but the less I view it as a musical, the more I can understand and see it as what a beautiful little masterpiece it is. The book absolutely soars with some of the most human stories on the West End right now, all flowing next to each other perfectly. Alongside such a stand-up cast of actors, this is a show that is not to be missed. But what do you think? Have you seen Standing at the Sky's Edge, either in Sheffield, in the National Theatre, or in the West End? Let me know all of your thoughts on the show in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. Here's some links to my videos on the screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!